calling us out for being fraud streamers. We said we do the Pistons
Oh,
next.
dang. All right, we'll go to the Pistons next. Because I do think they had one of the best off seasons too. Just think with the Pelicans, like they really did themselves so many favors by being like the sneaky competitive playoff team last season. Like I think that's one of the things that goes the most under radar year to year, like how much
Mm-hmm.
that does for certain teams. And you look back the last few years, I can give you two great examples. One is the Nets with Karis LeVert, D'Angelo
Mm-hmm.
Russell, Kenny Atkinson. Like just being competitive enough to make it to the first round and put up a fight got them KD and Kyrie, right? Barring what happened, that doesn't even matter. That's what
Mm-hmm.
happened for them having a competitive offseason or a competitive postseason. Same thing happened with the Clippers, right? They got to the playoffs, they competed,
Mm-hmm.
the Montrez, Lou Williams, and Pat Bev team, and then they end up with Kawhi and PG.
Mm-hmm.
Now, am I saying that that's the case with New Orleans? I don't think so, but I do think that the whole perspective about New Orleans changed from like a year ago, whereas they were the
Yeah.
team that people
Made fun of.
like how is this team throwing this so hard? You know, they're throwing
Yeah.
everything they had. They have Zion, this generational guy, and they're completely choking. If you put their team on paper, right? They have an incredibly competitive roster right now, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just look at their starting five, right, with their, three subs that they would have CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Herb
Mm-hmm.
Jones, Zion, and Jonas Valanciunas. That is already a really, really nice starting five, especially if Zion is the guy that he was at second half of SVG's last season in New Orleans, right, where we have Point Zion taking over, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then you think of like Jose Alvarado coming off the bench, this defensive little
Mm-hmm.
menace, right? Dyson Daniels, 6'8", he can handle the ball, he can shoot threes. Vontae Graham is still like a solid shooting off the bench threat. And then you have Trey Murphy III, who was like really nice as the season went on last year.
Mm-hmm.
I, I think that this team is actually going to be pretty competitive, Bernie. What about you? I
Here's
think
what
they're
I'll.
going to be better than they were last season.
I think they will be. My only concern about them is Zion Williamson. And obviously we know we got fit Zion right now. We got like videos of him looking ripped,
Yeah.
looking like he's in shape. My only concern is can he do that during the regular season? And so far it's been a no so far. And so that's my only concern from the Pelicans perspective is Zion going to be able to handle is like his body going to be able to handle everything that's going on right now. Because again, he was this close to having those kind of like Joel Embiid clauses in his contract where it was like a keep in shape type of situation. And we also had
Yeah.
a situation too where he might have not even re-signed with the Pelicans, right? We were thinking, oh, he might be going back to the Knicks. He might
Yeah,
be
but
going.
think about it, Bernie, that just being a little competitive into the postseason made it so he couldn't do that. You know, that completely went off the table, and then you have
Yeah.
Zion saying, I'm absolutely signing the max, which would go back to what we were talking about earlier, where he's signing the max and going to say, I'm out of here for sure in a year. Maybe, who knows? Um, but dude, I don't know, man. I think Zion. I am not off the Zion train. Have you
Mm-hmm.
been swayed at all to like feel like this is not the guy?
I won't say that he's not the guy, but I definitely he's a little bit less on my list just from the fact that I think that he's kind of moving the way that the way that his agent and I think his stepfather's the guy that's like kind of the
Yeah, I think he
brains
does
behind the
make all the
operation.
choices.
And so I think to me that's a little shady in that perspective. And it's not Zion's conviction or his like want to be like, okay, this is what I really want. And it's like all the fact that his stepfather says, hey, we're doing this and this. And so that's my
Mhm.
only issue with the Pelicans in that perspective. But in terms of everything else, I love what I'm seeing from them. I actually love EJ Liddell as kind of like a
Yep.
as a sleeper pick, and I think you could do something with Devonte Graham. You might be able to trade him,
Yeah, you have
and
Larry Nance Jr. too, is
yeah,
actually legitimately good.
yeah, and I might look to make some moves. I think that the Pelicans could make at least a couple moves here and there.
I agree.
I heard Jackson Hayes might be on the trade block for them, and you could get rid of him, and try to move him for something that you might want. Again, I'm excited for the Pelicans' perspective and the fact that they finally have a team where I can be excited for. And they drafted Dyson Daniels, who again is an exciting point guard prospect. They finally can get that point guard prospect that they've been looking for ever since Chris Paul left their franchise. And so they're trying to figure out how they can get better. And so I'm curious to see how that'll work out for them.
I just think like in a perfect world, Zion is their point guard, right? We saw how absolutely unstoppable that is when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
He can do it. Their team is perfectly constructed with guys who don't need the ball in their hands. You know,
Yeah.
Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Jose Alvarado, Dyson Daniels, these are all their guards, and none of those guys need the ball, you know?
Yeah.
So I just like the switchability of this team
Yeah.
when it comes down to like if Zion is healthy, this team is going to be like pretty limitless in the lineups they can
Yeah.
run. Like whether or not they want to be super offensively focused with Devontae Graham and CJ McCollum, or they want to be
Mm-hmm.
crazy defense, you know, and have Jose Alvarado and
Mm-hmm.
Herb Jones out there. You know, they can switch all over the place. I like this Pelicans, and I would actually say I think we need to give David Griffin like the ultimate like I cannot believe this guy turned this situation around as much as he
Yeah.
did. I'm
I
actually
shocked.
shocked by that. Yeah. It might be the most surprising thing in the NBA to me personally that he managed to turn this around. Or
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think that, what, and I also think that, Willie Green is the head coach as well, is a good,
Great, great,
is a
great coach too. I
great
mean, you
coach,
saw what
great
he
coaching
did
hire.
like just I mean the culture, you know, I hate
Yeah.
to just go culture, but the chemistry and the culture with him as their coach. I mean, what
Mm-hmm.
did they start like 0-10 last season or something like that?
Yeah.
And he convinced them that it does not need to be that way, you know, and they
Yeah.
they really bought in and they gave Phoenix a lot of problems in that opening series. So
Yeah.
we should have seen it. You know, I think a lot of us just kind of chalked it up, and I would say myself in particular, I chalked it up to like, oh, Phoenix just isn't taking them seriously, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if anything, it was more an indictment on where Phoenix was going, and also the fact that New Orleans was pretty legit. Like they
Yeah.
were actually really competing their asses off. So I
Yeah.
like I like this team a lot.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see how they compete in this crazy West.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely going to be a crazy West, and we'll find out what they're going to be able to do from that perspective. Should we go to the Pistons?
Let's hit the Pistons.
Since we promised them. All right. So the Pistons obviously made some interesting moves here in the NBA. They agreed to a buyout with the New York Knicks has been finalized. So Kemba Walker is now going to be off the roster for them. And so they actually signed Marvin Bagley to a 3-year deal. I'm a little iffy on that
That
one.
was way too much money for Bagley. Did you see
Yeah.
that? 3 for
Yeah.
37, I think.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. I believe that they also get Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks.
Yep, they
Um,
did. They did take both of them.
and it looks like they,
They're both expiring too.
yeah, they declined the Frank Jackson contract. They declined the Luca Garza contract. They signed Kevin Knox to a 2-year, $6 million contract. And they obviously signed their players that they picked up. And so I'm actually excited. Obviously Jaden Ivey, excuse me, as their
And
as their
Jalen Duren too.
and Jalen Duran, who I really like. I know Sean knows I'm a big Jalen Duran stan.
I'm a big fan of his too. I
He's a
was actually
man.
pretty bummed the Knicks didn't keep him, but
He's a man child on the boards, and so that's why I love his hustle and tenacity. And so for me, when I look at this stuff, I like where the Pistons are going. A year before, I was hugely skeptical on a Cade Cunningham and Killian Hayes backcourt lineup because I'm like, can Killian Hayes really be that guy? Like I haven't yet to see him kind of take that next step in progression. And whether that's injuries or whatnot, injuries have to play a factor to this. And the classic cliche saying, Pete, the best ability is availability. And so if
yeah.
he's not available and not working on his game, only using his left hand, only going to the left side, it's a tough ask for me to make Killian Hayes like that next level guy. And so for me, when I look at
Sure.
everything, I think that the Pistons made a great move in getting Jaden Ivey and working on getting Jalen Duren as well. And I think that their roster and their lineup looks pretty good.
Yeah, I actually like this team, and I think I will say a little caveat here as well. I think they did luck out like severely. The fact that Kings did and took Keegan Murray. Whatever you think of Keegan Murray, they shouldn't have kept the fourth pick and taken Keegan Murray. You know, we could talk about that later. We can litigate that a little bit
Okay.
as we get to the Kings. But the fact that Jaden Ivey was just sitting there for them, He couldn't fit any better with Cade as another just athletic
Yeah.
guard if they wrote in their journal their dream scenario. Like he's
Yeah.
the perfect type of player to sit right next to Cade in terms of off-ball scoring potential and just like his work rate. Jaden Ivey is another guy that like I don't think his defense I don't think it was really representative like his last year in college at Purdue. I don't think
Hmm.
that represented how good of a defender he can be.
Yeah.
I would argue like I already brought up the Ja comparison because I know that was out there all the time. Like he's much bigger bodied than Ja. He's 6'4", he's built.
Hmm.
Like, he's gonna, I think, grow into a pretty good defender as he gets a little older. I like this team a lot. And I agree with you, Bernie. I was not sold. But when you look at this young core that they have, I mean, you're pretty hard pressed not to think that this is one of the top three best young cores there is. It's Cade and Jaden Ivey as the top two, and then you have Sadiq Bey, Jalen Duren. You have, I mean, Marvin Bagley on that contract is crazy, but he did look a lot better last season as he got some time with Detroit.
Yeah.
I like this squad, man. And they're only going to have more flexibility too as it goes. I think they have the most cap space right now, right?
Yeah. I believe so.
If
Actually,
I were them, I would not make a big trade this season if I was them. I would not. I would continue to be bad for one more season or be competitively bad, I guess I should say. And position yourself to just let Cade and, Aiden Ivy grow into their roles and play next to each other and then see what you've got next season.
yeah.
That's what I would do.
Let's see here. I believe that they actually have the most cap space. It's them, the Pacers, then it's the 76ers.
Can't be right. Oh, that's because they haven't inked the Harden deal yet.
Yeah.
It's about to happen though, so we most likely that's about to happen. That'll change.
Yeah.
I mean, just the 1-2-3 punch of Cade and Jaden Ivey and Sadiq Bey that's pretty nice. I feel like
Yeah.
Sadiq Bey, where does he rank on like the underrated young guys in the league right now? Like I feel like he's
He's
kind of
up
high
there.
on the list.
He's up there, especially where he probably should have been drafted in that draft
Nobody
class
nobody
last year.
talks about him. Just don't ever hear Sadiq Bey get mentioned
Yeah.
other than I think he had that 51-point game and people talked about him a lot for like a day and then they forgot he existed again. He is legitimately a solid player. The
Hmm.
one thing that they're doing super well is they're not they've gotten lucky in the sense that they've been able to take the best guy available to them at every step of the way.
Yeah.
It's never impacted one player's position. Like
Hmm.
Aid is a strict number one, the way he plays. I would argue that Jaden Ivey is a two. He's a two guard. He's perfectly suited to be the two on a team, and Sadiq Bey is perfectly a three. Like these guys all slot in perfectly with one another. I love that about this team. Jalen Duren, if you're super high on Jalen Duren, there you go. He's a five. You know? I
Yeah.
like the squad.
Yeah. And let
I
us
don't
know
know
in the
if I'm as sold. I don't know if like I'm as like excited about them like right now as some people seem to be, but like the core is long term is great.
Yeah, I think next year will still be a little bit of a struggle year just because they're trying to figure out and play with each other. But I am excited about kind of what they could do in the near future about building their roster and continuing to work on getting better each and every year as they continue to figure out what's the best situation for them, roster and salary cap wise.
Let's
Um,
be straight up too. Killian Hayes is 20. Like I know you think one thing about him. You never know. Like he was the youngest player drafted in his draft class.
mm-hmm.
Is he's still super young and he has skills. Like he is a
Yeah.
good defender in the league. He really is. So wouldn't write him off completely. I just don't think it's clearly he's not the 1-2 punch with Cade that people thought he might be, including myself.
Should we move to the Hornets because we do have a couple of people talking about the situation at hand as it pertains to
Oh, Miles,
Miles. Yep.
let's do it.
All right, let's talk
Let's
about
do
him.
it.
So the Charlotte
Messiest
Hornets,
offseason?
one of the messiest off seasons in a while. I think that it clearly goes to show that when a coach decides that after accepting the job and learning about all the players and their sort of antics that are going on in their NBA offseason, I think it clearly goes to show that the fact that you lost a guy in Kenny Atkinson, whatever you think about him, whether or even D'Antoni, he was also another rumored coach that was supposed to. That I would have honestly, Pete, I would have loved if D'Antoni would have went to this team because I think that
LaMelo with D'Antoni would have been
That's what I'm
amazing.
saying. Like it would have been just like a trying to get him point guard on steroids because of the way that D'Antoni uses his point guards a lot. It would have been a great thing for him, but the off-season situations continue to bite the sorry, I want to call them the Pelicans, but the Hornets in the butt
Mhm.
each and every time. The fact that you had that situation with Bridges at the beginning where he threw his mouthpiece during the playoffs, and then now you have his domestic violence situation going on again. It's videos have come out. There's been pictures have come out, and so again, this is all alleged. I don't want to say that this obviously you can make it whatever you want in court of public opinion, but this is all allegedly. He has a domestic violence suit against him. He posted bail. The we have Lamelo Ball with his and he's not in trouble. He's not doing anything, but he is dating an older woman, 35 years
Who?
old.
Who? No way, dude.
Yeah. And so I can't remember her name. I'll look it up as you talk for the Pelicans. Or sorry, I keep wanting to call them Pelicans. They're the uh,
Bobcats. No, I'm just kidding. They're the Hornets. That's what I do. I always call them the Hornets in my head.
um, yeah. Go ahead, man.
Oh man, this team. I mean, they've got to be the biggest team thankful for the mess that is Brooklyn, right? Distracting how awful this offseason has been for them. Um Started and Bernie, I'm gonna take it back to the beginning of the offseason, right? I think this might be one of the biggest like worst karma instant karma retributions we've seen in the NBA in a while, right? Because in my opinion, they should not have fired Borrego. I thought that was a terrible choice.
Yeah,
The trajectory of the
I
team,
agree.
what he had been working with from his first season there, it was only going up, realistically. Because at the end of the day, this team has some bad contracts, and they've had bad contracts since Borrego got there. Because, you know, I hate to bring the Knicks back into this. If you think Brunson's contract is bad, Terry makes more than Brunson, right? Like, Terry
Eesh.
Rozier that's cracked. That's crazy. In a bad way, is it cracked? That's terrible. Um, but yeah, man, the fact that they lose somebody like Atkinson, and I don't think we found out 100% why, right? I think that decision seemed to be a mix of he found out some stuff about Charlotte and also decided like my
Mhm.
situation is perfect in terms of me winning some rings here and getting to be with, arguably the generational player that is Steph Curry, right? So,
Yeah.
on the Hornets in particular, man, I don't know. I really don't know. I think I was in like a small minority of people. I really wouldn't have wanted to max out Bridges before this, personally.
Yeah.
No. And when it comes down to it, unfortunately for everybody involved, because this is just a mess of a situation, and allegedly what he did is about as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
They're gonna get probably a good deal and get to keep him, which is not like to be celebrated based on the events, but from just pure business standpoint, it might be a win for them.
Yeah.
It might be a win in terms of they don't have to pay this guy who isn't worth max money. If you watch the Hornets and think that Miles Bridges is a max player, I just beg to differ. Like he might be able to put up 30 points in a bunch of games, but you're not winning. You're not winning anything with him doing that. It's not that far off of somebody like Jeremy Grant with Detroit. And I know he's more fun than Jeremy Grant is. He's high flying, he's young, so on and so forth. But it's
Hmm.
not like he's a guy that's going to take you from, C minus team to a B plus. He's not going to. So it was already a mess because they were either going to overpay him or he was going to go for nothing, which was a mistake on their part, both sides. Um, in the coaching situation, now to go back to Steve Clifford on a second
Ugh.
runaround, which
Yeah.
say what you will about Steve Clifford. He's a good coach, just doesn't make this a good signing, though. It's one of
No.
the rare instances of a team getting a good coach where it's just not the right time or situation for a good coach.
Yeah.
And more than anything, it's desperation. It's an absolute desperation play for this team of like, we're familiar with Steve Clifford. We know what he can do, and he wasn't the worst coach of all time when he was here. He's had some success in other places, mild success, but there are other guys I feel like they could have had. Where's Vogel? Where's Vogel at? You know, does he
Yeah.
not want to coach right now?
I don't think so. I think he's
I didn't
chilling.
even, I didn't even, I didn't even hear him come up in this. So, no, man, they're going to be worse next season. And I
Mm.
know there's a lot of LaMelo fans out there that are going to be very upset about that. But this is a messy situation that I do not see getting any better anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean the fact that the pictures have come out from the Miles Bridges situation, the fact that he had Target Nation talked about it, talking about pink lemonade in his cup. Um, Again, to me, this all screams the fact that this organization can be dysfunctional at times, and they need to add. They just need more veteran leadership, and then of course you have the Montrezl Harrell thing. Whatever you think about that sort of situation, again, it's another thing that's kind of come up. I've been frustrated in the fact that I think Michael Jordan needs to really put his foot down and be like, what the hell are we doing out here? Because in order for the Hornets to take that next step, right? We were disappointed in their play-in situation. In order for them to take that next step, they need to step up. They all need to step up. They all need to get better. And now, as the Hornets, you have to start questioning yourself. Like, are we going to bring back? Can you bring back Miles Bridges? I mean, that I don't think you can now. That
You
that'll
don't
be.
think he can come back to the Hornets now? 'Cause in my opinion, I don't think he can go anywhere else. Really don't. Like,
I just. It's a
I
tough.
don't know, man. It is tough because in the business, I mean, look at, I hate to keep bringing this up, but look at Deshaun Watson, man. Like, people, organizations, businesses are desperate to have anything that's even remotely potential. There is a potential
Mhm.
to it. So there are going to be people who can convince themselves possibly that this is a guy that will still pay and just make it like, make the contract as strict as possible. If there's any situation, it's void or whatever it is, right? Somebody will
Mhm.
convince themselves. Somebody, and
Yeah.
maybe that's me being a pessimist, but somebody will pay this guy, even if he probably should not be allowed to play in the league for a while, right? Um, that being said, I just think it's going to be Charlotte. I think Charlotte is continuing to make bad choices, and what more on-brand choice would it be than to pay this guy now? I don't mean give him the max like he was. Like I said, they're going to pay him less than they would have had to, but he's going to still get money.
Yeah.
Going to get money.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think that with all other options as well, you drafted Mark Williams, who I actually do like. With the
Love that. I actually, I'll be straight up. I love their draft. I actually really liked what they did. Mark
hmm
Williams is the perfect fit next to a guy like LaMelo.
Yeah,
Um, and I just really liked Mark Williams in general. He was actually one of my favorite players in this draft from
yeah,
like, if you get him at the right spot, he was
yeah,
one of my favorite players. Yeah, all their other choices, dang, man.
yeah. And then you got the Montrezl Harrell situation again. I don't want to get too much into it. I know whatever you think about it, it is what it is. He got in trouble. That's
Did
kind
he
of
do?
just uh weed, but I think it was like a
Well, that's
bunch,
silly.
bunch of it. I think I can't remember what it was. It
Like
was
distribution stuff, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a mess. But still, I didn't hear about that. When did that happen? Just now?
Happened. No, it happened a couple weeks ago, maybe a week or two
Oh
ago.
dang, I must have been not paying attention.
Montrez Harold.
Let me actually pull up their roster real quick because I mean, they're a weird team in the sense that like they actually do have talent for not being as good as they are. I still love Book Knight. I still love LaMelo at this point. Kai Jones, there was a couple little flashes here and there.
Yeah, he's facing a
It,
felony,
it, wait.
drug trafficking
It-
charge. But again, it might,
yeah,
it's
it's
a
it's a messy charge though.
yeah.
That's pretty tough. That's a pretty tough one. That being said, this is a team that still has like they have some things they can and need to do. Like they can move
hmm
Harry even at his price. Actually, let me correct myself. He does not make more than Jalen Brunson yet. His contract will go higher than Brunson's in the next year or two.
Who's
But he
that?
makes Terry Rozier. He
Oh,
makes
okay.
18 right
Yeah,
now. Which is still crazy for a guy like Terry. I know people like Terry a lot, but he's a six man at best.
could be good
A
on the
lot of money.
Lakers.
he would be a good fit for them. Honestly, I like that fit a lot. But they have somebody like Gordon Hayward, making $30 million a year, can't stay healthy. He's a guy that needs to get moved. They
Yep,
have to move him for
I agree.
something. Whether or not there is an actual move to be made. And the funny part is it would be really interesting. We talked about Charlotte as a Donovan Mitchell team earlier.
Hmm.
The reunion of Hayward in Utah where he probably should have stayed in retrospect. Like that was kind of
Yeah.
the spot for him and the right city and team
Hmm.
for his brand of player. Um, I don't know, man. This is a team that I think had a lot of potential last year and is looking a little suspect right now.
Yeah, and we'll find out in the near future for the Hornets what they can do, especially in free agency, depending on the whole Bridges situations. What happens in that case? Like, is someone going to pay that contract? Is someone not going to pay that? And did he cost himself $100 million by doing that? That's the biggest question mark that we're going to find out in the near
I
future.
You have to hope so. You have to hope that these people have some sort of conscience in terms of, and it's alleged. It is alleged. I'm not saying 100% confirmed, but let's just say all things are pointing to this is true, right? And he did this awful thing.
Yeah,
Perfect world, those guys don't get that kind of money, Like
yeah,
it shouldn't be that way, but it's a business. It's a business. So
yeah,
some businessman is gonna look the other way on his conscience at some point.
yeah.
It's to be how it goes in these leagues.
Yeah. But let us know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of the Hornets? Do you think that this is a messy situation for them, or what do you expect the Hornets to do this offseason? Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think about the Hornets? Let's see here.